It is now time to talk frauds, fixers, mercenaries, and all the madness that surround us. Let's talk frauds and fixers first. Okay, my latest premium is up over at redvoicemedia.com. Can't suggest you watch it enough. It is with the extremely well-researched Johnny Vedmore, and it is about a fixer. And one of those fixers that you probably don't know much about, and that story is, say, as intriguing, as interesting, as important as, say, another fixer out there, Bill Barr. And I've got to wonder if the story itself is going to make its way into the Bill Barr arena, as by the end of part one, which we covered, it certainly made its way into the Central Intelligence Agency arena and the George Herbert Walker Bush arena. So who is Stanley Pottinger? Now, of course, I'm going to encourage you, although there are going to be small portions available online throughout the week. I think there's already a 4-minute sample or such out on Twitter. So first of all, newspace.com is where you're going to be able to find the first part of this series with Johnny Vedmore. And again, it's an incredible series. It's a historical piece. And of course, redvoicemedia.com/uncensored is where you're going to find the entire interview. Okay, where we really break it down. We're breaking things down, everybody. It's an important thing to break things down. Pottinger is really one of these Harvard-raised establishment individuals that comes in white knighting in the 70s on every peripheral aspect of our civil rights culture, of our equality culture, and through the looks of benevolence and righteousness, is constantly at events or involved in events like MLK Jr. to fix them, like Wounded Knee to fix them, like Kent State to fix them. Okay? So a lot of these guys, first of all, they're involved in the law arena. Like, being a lawyer is a big deal. Gonna want to be a lawyer, Smokey. You know, me and Smoke out on the path. A little cloudy out today. Not sure if you can see, a little overcast, but it doesn't stop us from getting out there, getting the walks in, and doing it bigly. We're doing it bigly. So, you know, this guy, unlike Barr, never officially served in any capacity for the Central Intelligence Agency, but has a ton of links. Instead, he gets his start as in the Civil Rights Division of the Health, Welfare, and Education system. So right in that very real social system that gets kind of set up post-World War II, etc. And, you know, he's an attorney on many levels. So one of the first cases that he ends up involved in, sorry guys, I got another dog over here. My dog's pulling me a bit. With the Nixon administration, of course, is Watergate. And Vedmore goes on to explain a lot of the different aspects of Watergate that many people are not aware of. And how all these things, they're not just one thing. Okay, and I think that's true of a lot of the major events that we end up covering. But any way you slice it, any way you dice it, I think it's a great conversation. It's one that is going to be relevant a week from now, a month from now, a year from now. And when he comes out with his next piece, we will be sure to interview him on the follow-up. I think this is one of those stories that's not going away, that is going to take several months to develop. And the beginning of the Stanley Pottinger story is really only the beginning of the story that's going to lead down a long and tangled road of Epstein. a long and tangled road of Epstein. So stay tuned for that. Okay, now let's get into mercenaries and madness. Can't get away from the Wagner Group today or yesterday. So, I make one post basically about the insanity, the wild times that we were seeing yesterday in Russia with the defense ministry surrounded by Mercs, and people don't understand, what the Wagner Group is. Just think, another type of Blackwater. Think about an organization that pays its mercenaries. But what's really interesting about this one, because they're in an actual conflict, is, and I believe I reported on this, not so much through the Wagner Group, but that Russia was doing this with inmates. And they let this guy tour jails and essentially offer pardons for those, and who knows whether they actually got the pardons afterwards or the bargains were kept. But allegedly, the deals were you had to fight 2 weeks on the front line. I don't know whether that 2 weeks turned into 2 months or to perpetual duty. It's really one of those things that I don't know where to believe the media, because one of the other things that they're saying about this guy, who's the head of the Wagner Group, is that he was the head of the notorious Russian troll farm that isn't real. There is no Russian troll farm. That GRU paper is absolutely ridiculous. The amount of influence Russia had over our quote-unquote elections through bots, troll farms, and ads was absolutely minimal, if not almost non-existent. And the real group that was doing the trolling, what they're calling trolling, was the Douglas Mackey, Justin McConney microchip group. Americans. Nothing to do with Russia, nothing to do with Wagner and his mercenaries. Now, when I first saw these videos, I, like many, was wondering what the hell was going on, because in the public square, people were acting like it was just another day. You didn't see people running for their lives or screaming or crying. A lot of people were acting super casual. So, I had a lot of people out there saying, it's all a psyop, it's all fake, it's all for the cameras. I have no idea. I'm not there, I'm not an expert. But I can tell you this, allegedly, it all ended with negotiations. I would imagine that it was the real deal, that Poot left Moscow. Gotta believe that. I don't think he would be dumb enough to stay. Originally, the videos showing the group, I guess at the defense ministry, they're at a location called Rostov. Probably butchering that, even though it should be a very easy one to pronounce. And about 600 miles away, all right? And boy, oh boy, did everybody become a pundit or an expert in the blink of an eye. I shied away from that. I said stay tuned, because I wasn't quite sure what was going on, okay? Still not 100% sure what's going on. I can tell you what the media is reporting. The media reported that Wagner felt like the Wagner Group, the leader there, Putin's chef, they call him, the billionaire ex-hot dog salesman. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, but apparently we don't have to. And, again, if you go by media accounts, he served 12 years before he was a chef in prison for all sorts of fraud, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, he felt like his troops had been killed by the Russians. They'd been targeted by the Russians when they were fighting for the Russians via this Ukraine conflict. And the group itself has been heavily involved in Ukraine and Russia via 2014 in that CIA-led coup. So, I saw so many people speculating that the Wagner Group, the Mercs, were now under the full control of the Central Intelligence Agency. I don't know. I don't know. Anytime I see a huge move like that, that's certainly a possibility. I think we also have to be open to the possibility there's a real grievance when I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 20,000 troops had been targeted and allegedly killed by their own side. That's a big deal. You know, what are you guys' thoughts? I can kind of read this right here. Putin could have put him up to it so he could find out who his enemies are. I mean, there's a lot. Hey, listen, you want to talk about 4D, 5D chess? This is it. I don't know. You know, this is one that's beyond my scope. And I think it's beyond most people's scopes. Like, if you're being honest with yourself, how many people even knew what's his name, Pisgorian or something like that? Pisgorian? I can't even pronounce it. How many even people knew his name before this? You know? And, you know, from what I'm reading, and I take it all with a grain of salt, this is a guy that's putting out videos all the time that are being seen in that region. And he has somewhat of a cult following. Again, I don't know, man. All I know is that when first world leaders start to be deposed during coups, or when first world leaders start being arrested, like in this country, by their political enemies, you have a hotbed of possibility for an actual global conflict, aka a world war. AKA a world war. I don't know what World War III looks like. I can tell you right now, I don't want to live through it. I hope it doesn't look half as bad as I can imagine. I can imagine some pretty dark stuff. We've had it really good for a really long time in this country. I don't think we fully understand or respect what it would be like to be a Moscow citizen, right? Or because I'll tell you right now, Moscow, as this was happening, had police start boarding things up. There was the speculation that there wasn't going to be enough military in Moscow to protect the capital from this group because they were so spread thin out on enemy lines, and that's why this was a strategic move. And that's why I'm not so convinced that, you know, that was a staged photo op when they raided the defense ministry. All those people just kind of standing there with their jaws on the floor or acting casual. You know, no one was firing weapons. No one was barking orders at them. I'm sure they were also in a state of shock. What would it look like here in this country if, say, man, a part of DC or on the outskirts in Virginia, in Langley, if a Merc group, Blackwater, Oak Grove, or whatever, went and took over some government facility, or even a pseudo-government facility like a Raytheon. I mean, those things are pretty seen in that area. They're pretty accessible. If you had a group of mercenaries like the one there, I could totally see that happening. They're not very much in residential areas, so maybe you don't have that type of reaction. But everybody who starts saying that those people should have reacted one way or another, I think you're kind of fooling yourself. I don't think that you actually have a scope of the shock that those people must have been under. Now, on the flip side of that, if you're on a region like the Donetsk or the Donbass and you're in the Ukraine region, well, I don't think that's going to be your reaction. Although, you know, I've seen some of the footage there where people just casually walk by buildings that are blown up, casually walk by dead bodies that used to be their neighbors. That's what a war zone is, man. I don't ever want to live through one. I'm hoping we don't have to. All right, guys, I think that's going to do it. I think we're going to wrap it up. I want to remind everybody, the links are down below to support me, buying me a coffee using that PayPal, signing up for Rockfin, or to get that Johnny Vedmore interview, 1 hour long. Really important, breaking down Stanley Pottinger. It is redvoicemedia.com/uncensored, redvoicemedia.com/uncensored. Try it for a week for only $1, $10 a month, or lock it in for $100. support the broadcast, and save yourself 20. Guys, I love you. Thanks for joining me. Thumbs it up, subscribe, and share. Remember, making sense of the madness. Great interviews. Just posted my Billboard Chris interview on both Rumble and Rockfin. I'd encourage you to check that out as we're making sense of the madness at 6 p.m. Monday through Friday at ampnews.us, and that is always free. So once again, guys, I love you. Smokey and I are going to finish up our little walk, ski, and hutch, and I will see you all on the flip side.